Now Chad must strive to move on after the burial of its former president, Idriss Deby, who died on the front line defending the territorial integrity of the country. The African Union is now calling for an end to military rule in the country after its army immediately announced that Idriss Deby's son, who is an army general, would head a military council for 18 months before elections hold. The Peace and Security Council of the AU says it is concerned about the military takeover and is asking for power to be restored to civilian authorities quickly. Now joining me is Global Affairs Analyst Chuks Nwoko to talk on this. Chuks, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me
on TVC Breakfast. It's good to see you once again. Now let's talk about what is going on in Chad. The AU is concerned. African countries around Chad are also concerned, especially about the stability and the transition that happened. And the AU is saying that what should have happened was that hand over to the civilian role should have taken over immediately. There shouldn't have been any issue of a military transitional government on all of that. But his son, that's Idriss Deby's son, Muhammad, has promised that there will be new institutions and free and democratic election after this 18 months transition. So what really do you think is the main concern for AU here? Is it that they don't trust Idriss Deby's son to do what he has promised?
Well, I don't think so. I personally, by the way, thank you for having me. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I think that what is going on is that when we latch on things that we take from the Western world, we just hold on to it, and we're consistently jettisoning our own way of life, our culture and way of living. What they're talking about here is, democracy. And you know my stand. Personally, you know what my stand has been as regarding what's going on in Africa, going on in Nigeria, in Cameroon, and in other places. Our democracy has become very disruptive. So if the citizens and if the leadership in Chad believes that 18 months is a time and it is the military that can bring that stability, why not? You can still do your election in another 18 months or 2 years, even more, to be able to midwife whatever it is that they want to have. I think that the concern for me is misplaced. The people should have made the leadership in that country has made that decision that they need 18 months of interregnum, as it were, to be able to fashion out what because they have had a military rule over during the reign of the late president, and they have these issues that is going on that eventually led to the death of the president. So they should be allowed to fashion out what will work for them. If they want to make a suggestion, I support it, but don't make an issue out of it. Because if you check the history of the development and historical development, the military, even in Nigeria, has always played that vital role. I agree that it was overdone to a certain level, but every time our politicians, and we have had lacunas like this, the military has always intervened and bring solution, and bring politicians together, and give them time to think and fashion out what they want to do.
So you think that that this current leadership, in terms of Muhammad Idriss Deby's son, will be able to ensure that stability, sustain the strongman model his dad had shown over time? Because what we are seeing is that civil societies are even calling for a protest against this change or decision.
The man that died, one of the things that occurred to me when I heard the news was that they probably want to reward the family, compensate the family, whatever it is that they want to do with the family. They lost their father, they lost national leader and all that. And his son has been well groomed, for a leadership position like this.
But something that he is not matured enough.
No, he's at 37.
It's not in age. Maturity is not in age.
Exactly. Remember? So you can have an 80-year-old person who is also not matured to provide leadership like you have in other parts of the continent. What I'm saying is that at 37, with military rule and training, I believe that he's very mature. But when you had Gowon lead this country, it was less than 37. So the point here is finding that leadership innate ability to drive that nation for the next 18, 24 months I would have suggested 24 months to be able to allow politicians to realign themselves. They have an election, you know. So I don't know. I think that the way to go is the way the people themselves have decided that this is what we want. We want this interregnum.
This is not the decision of the people now.
No, the leadership. You have to have leadership. There can never be a vacuum. Whether the decision was made by the military, why would the military be making a decision in a political era? You know. So I think that the people should, the leadership of that country have made that decision. They should be allowed this 18 months interregnum, and that will give the politicians the cool-headedness that they require to make sure that when they eventually have that election, that they will agree, that it will be fair, that they will. Now, 18 months is enough time for the political class to decide what they want, and not, you know, civil society. Do they really have what else to do than to protest?
Of course they have. The interest of the people, the general masses.
Look, the military also are citizens of that country. We should stop demonizing the military. You know, I hear the things that are said about Nigerian military, how they fashion. Without them, this geopolitical zone that we are enjoying today has become a very powerful political, what is it called? They created it. Creation of state, they are the ones who have the courage to do it. Today we are broke. Commonsensical, what do you do when you're broke or when you're low, your finances are low? You're looking what's at cut cost. We're not able to do it. Bring the military, they're able to do it. So I think that the people should be allowed to lead themselves. AU, I don't really know their relevance, but if they have spoken, I think that the presentation they make should be left at the level of subjection. Do you understand? But as far as I'm concerned, they just say, you know, when we're in school, they will ask you to decide to write an essay whether such organs are toothless bulldog or what is it. They should just leave them and stand by the line, you know, sideline and advise them. I'll suggest to them what they should do. But this demonizing of the military, of a nation, I don't like it.
Perhaps because they have seen the activities of the military, and that is why, you know, the perception don't just come if there aren't
your civilians are not able to amend constitutions.
The military has done for them to have that kind of perception.
Your civilians are not able to amend constitutions. The military who wrote our constitution, they are not perfect.
Right.
Do you understand? They have not been, how many years after? They have not been able to amend the constitution to our satisfaction. What will you take you to amend the constitution that you believe that is?
They've been having amendments.
They have been having amendment. I don't know what amendments they have made. How it has affected, because they are still complaining.
Now, it's the effect now that you're talking about, but they have.
I think that they should be left alone and allow the young man to lead the country for a short period of time.
All right.
And trust that the politicians will use that period of this period of interregnum to fashion out what they want for themselves and the people that they claim that they care about.
All right, let's bring in our second guest, public affairs analyst Dotun Ojon. Good morning. Good to see you again.
Shall I say Happy New Year to you?
I should say that, yes.
Good to see you, sir.
Now we have been talking about Chad before you came in. The issue is the AU is concerned about this transitional government. It says that it should have handed over to the civilian or democracy as immediately, as quickly as possible, because the stability of the country, we know how critical Chad is when you look at the region. And so that is their concern. And there's also the issue of division within the army. If the son, Idriss Deby's son, will get that kind of support, and if he's not getting that kind of support, that could drive the country into a deeper situation. Now, what concerns do you have with this development? Are you also in support of the AU's? Are you in support of the AU's decision that perhaps they should have handed over to the civilian immediately? Because Chuks is in support of this.
I think one major problem that we've continued to have over time as a continent is to concentrate on the system of government that we are supposed to run, rather than the kind of leadership that we're supposed to provide.
Right.
Now, the problem we have with Africa is not in the system of government that we run. If that is the case, between 1999 and 2021, you and I, we agree that Nigeria should have turned to a Jerusalem of sort in terms of development. So I think the concentration should not, at this point in time, be on the system of government. It should be the kind of leaders we are building. Unfortunately, in Africa, we have the same kind of leadership mindset. And this leadership mindset is, let me rule, perhaps for life.
Yeah.
Because it's taken from our traditional system of government, where you install the ego of your community, and he rules throughout life. And in case where perhaps his demise, possibly the constitution of the community may also permit the prince, they call them the crown prince, to actually continue their reign. So that has been the system of always wanting to look at the system of government rather than providing the kind of leadership that can bail the people out of trouble. And I'm not totally happy about that. That is coming up again.
So looking at the kind of leadership that Idriss Deby had before his demise, can his son, you know, sustain that kind of strong leadership to ensure that within this 18-month period, he can ensure that stability? Because he is saying that he is not going to negotiate with the rebels, and the rebels are saying that they are not backing down.
You see, I don't want us to go back to the kind of leadership the father provided, because if you ask me, don't let us look at the process of the leadership. Let's look at the product of the leadership.
Right.
What's the product of the leadership? Almost 66% of the people are in abject poverty. I mean extreme poverty. In a community of about 15 million people, and you have that percentage of people in poverty, then the product of leadership has not been wonderful. Now you can say, oh, he's been able to quench all insurrection, he's been able to keep peace. But I tell you that the peace he even kept was a fragile one. Because at every point in time since 1990 to his demise in April, you discover that a lot of people were still coming out, even within the military, to challenge his authority. He has the capacity to lead the people when it comes to providing military leadership, because he was able to inspire the little number of the military in the community to actually be able to guide them. That's why the fact that if you look at the country, you know, in the north we have Libya.
Yes.
I think somewhere in the east we have Sudan, and in the south there's Central African Republic. So if you look at this, is a community within crisis in itself. So for him to have been able to, okay, keep them in that relative peace is commendable. But when you look at the product of the leadership, I am not totally concerned. So this is what I'm looking at. Thank God we have a 21st century compliant person who is leading the military at this time. I believe that he will be able to add the experience of his father and the innovation of an average young man on the street of the country to be able to provide leadership and unite the people. As little as that country is, they have close to over 200,000 ethnic groupings and groupings within that small country. So your ability to align the South with the North, bring the people together for a common development. What are the people looking for? The people at this point are not even concerned whether you introduce democracy or whether it's military.
But we are seeing reports of civil society saying that they want to protest against this development.
Of course, if I were there, that will also come up. But I'm telling you that the core of the people, and my protest will not be as a result of the fact that whether the son is succeeding the father. My protest will be that how can we suddenly transit from democracy to military rule without a recourse to the National Assembly? So there was actually a coup. But the coup was not to kill the president. The coup was to kill democracy. Because if the president of a nation dies, that does not signal the end of democracy.
Absolutely.
You understand? So there was a coup, and the coup silenced democracy. I am totally against that. That is what the civil society organizations are contesting or fighting against. But at the end of the day, I am talking about what will benefit an average person on the street. It is not the system of government. It is that kind of leadership that will be able to bail them out of crisis. As we speak now, there will be a lot, even if we had had democracy, a continuation of democracy, we still have a little bit of crisis here and there. Because providing leadership for that kind of community now, to unite them, to bail them out of poverty, to give them hope, is something that I think we should be concerned about. Not just who becomes the president, or not just the kind of system we're on. Yeah.
Chicks, you want to react to what he said?
Yeah, well, not completely. I'm no longer an ardent enthusiast about democracy, because I'm upset with what is going on with our own disruptive democracy here.
Okay.
I know that democracy on its own, it's great. But when you bring political party politics and we're faced with all this type of thing we faced here and all that, I just think that we need to get back to what we used to have before we brought this thing upon ourselves. We used to have a system of government and all that. Even with the place where you have kings that are born and all that, you still have chiefs who rise against their kings and all that. And they can be excommunicated or be escorted out of the community and all that. But today, in our democracies, you have people contest election, and when it looks like they're losing or something is going wrong with their whatever, they come to TV and tell you, I will make the country ungovernable for you. That's the kind of thing that we are supporting. And truly, they go back and make the state ungovernable, and nobody talks to them, and we are blaming bandits, we are blaming herdsmen. Meanwhile, the people who are causing this problem are behind and instigating this problem. That's the problem that I have with what you're talking about. But with military, this man can take up arms and go and challenge these rebels because he wanted to maintain the sanity of that environment. But I agree with him completely when it comes to the essence of leadership is to take care of the citizens. We have all over the place. I mean, do you believe that on Saturday night we had gone to church and all that? A friend of mine lost her car to a pothole. I drove around the city of Lagos yesterday. On Oregun Road, there was no light. That is what is called Rahmanism. When you make a promise to people, what happened to the diesel that we are supposed to use to power the light on that Oregun Ojota Road? What happened to it? On the major roads, they were light. Why so if in that city, in that country, Chad, you have that sizable, that minimal population, and do you know what? Maybe he didn't mention that. The amount of natural resources in that country is an envy to whoever that is outside of them. How many nations have what they have in terms of oil, in terms of other natural resources? And have you noticed that it's countries like Nigeria, Chad, and Sudan, and all these countries that have natural resources that are constantly in crisis? Why? Have you ever asked yourself why? Because you have merchants, local merchants, who are conflict entrepreneurs, who make these sounds and attract these foreign people into our country, and they are settled. So you have gone all over the place. And I think that the young man in charge, going back to the subject matter, the young man in charge should be allowed these 18 months to be able to, let's see what he can offer. But the northern part of Chad and the other parts of the country, he should be able to bring them together. We are not able to do the same here. You have our elites speaking from all sides of their mouth. He should be able to use his military training and negotiate and allow for compromise here and there and bring sanity to the people. Why is it that we have all these divisions in Nigeria? Why do you have rebels? It's because we have people who must have access to our wealth, and the only way to do it if they're not in the corridors of power is to make all this noise, then become agents and all that. They should leave African continent to live, and even those of us in the continent should be able to decide what we want. We have lived here for centuries before we invited this democracy upon us, and now it's not working. Are we senseless to know when something is not working? For instance, we are broke. You have leadership that does not understand that we are broke, that you can close down one arm of the National Assembly, that you can cut costs. Do you need a white man to come and tell you that? So we should allow him to fashion out whatever. 18 months is a short period. If he doesn't do that, then let them have an election and hand over to these disruptive people who call themselves politicians, who add nothing to citizens but take. So that's my take. He should be allowed, not because I am a whatever for military, but we've tried democracy and we will continue to try it, but it's not working for me. It's not working. Look at what you have faced in Nigeria. That's what they have faced. You have a group of people taking up arms. Have you ever asked yourself why people take up arms? Again, you think it's those young men that are taking up arms are the instigators. There are people behind them, people who are gun and weapon merchants, who are conflict merchants, who are entrepreneurs in troublemaking. And you know who these people are? They are elites. Yeah. So they should allow him, if he's able to galvanize and mobilize his people, the northern part of the country of Chad, he's able to call a conference, whatever he needs to do, I don't know. But bring that country to a place where they can accept one another and decide that the people come first and that this is what the people need. And all this Rahmanism that we experience in Nigeria here, where government will make you promises and not be able to do it, that is reversed in that country. The concern that he has is about the extreme poverty that about 60-something or 80-something% of the people suffer. If that's not dealt with, then it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Let's come back to you, Dotun, because the issue again is the fact that he may not get as much support. There's divisions within the army, which is also a major concern. He cannot do these things alone. He needs the support of these people coming together to ensure that he delivers on whatever it is we are talking about here. How much of a concern is this, or how much of a stumbling block can that be?
You know, one very strong member of his father's government, General Diko, is trying to bring people together against his government now. And it's a major concern, really, because that means that they were unable to actually unite the military, not to talk of uniting the community. Now, the first thing you do, no matter how bad it is, we talk about political parties here and there in Nigeria, and they say, oh, you don't have internal democracy. I don't know whether I've heard that.
Of course.
So the expectation really is for you to be able to unite your village before you come to my city to unite my city. So it's a major problem for me. And I tell you, either we like it or whichever way we see it, I don't think at this point in time that an average person on the street, I mentioned this earlier, is concerned about whether we are talking about military or democracy. Because what makes a system of government bad is not the system of government. It is how the people actually operate the system. Now, our democracy is bad not because democracy does not have answer to the problems that we have. It's simply because of the fact that we only imported our leadership failure into democracy and cause havoc within the system. So the same thing will still happen in military rule. And that's why you heard my concern. My concern is about, will he be able to provide leadership that the people will believe in? Because believability in a country of 200 ethnic grouping is a major factor. If you learn from Nigeria, the major issue we have today is not whether the government is failing or the government is performing. The major challenge is the people of the South. Do they believe the government? The major concern is that the people of the North, do they believe in the government? So believability is a currency. Once you can expend this currency very well, then you get loyalty in return. Without loyalty, either within or without the military, I doubt whether this young man will be able to succeed. And this is where he needs what they call it in leadership, tact, TACT, ability to step on people's toes without necessarily...
But with the time he has spent working in the military over the years, rising through the ranks, do you think that he'll be able to deliver on this? Are you confident? You see, can you see all of that?
You see, rising through the military is one phrase that, to me, has become doubtful. Because if you look at the corruption level in Chad, then you really want to ask yourself the simple question: did he actually really rise? Or is the same, I forgot what they call it in management, or is the same thing where because your father is the president and you keep getting the promotion? So the question is not whether he rose through the military. The question is with the level. You see, Republic of Chad is one of the most corrupt nations of the world. And corruption is not just in terms of France or Naira and Kobo. Corruption is actually converting some of these things to public, this thing to personal use. So maybe in the process, this is just, I'm just creating a scenario.
Right.
You and I cannot tell whether this is actually what happened. But the question is, yes, the question is, did he actually pass through the rank? Because in fairness, if you did pass through the rank, there are some learnings, there are some understandings, there are some experiences, there are some innovation that you're supposed to bring into governance. But this is a major fear for me, that did he actually go through the ranks?
So invariably what you are saying, if I hear you correctly, is that you are not confident.
With the level of corruption, I am not. With the level of corruption, you see,
he did. He went through the ranks. Among all his other siblings that are in the military, he went through, what you said about corruption is true, but the truth of the matter is that why that is the case, he was actually well trained and groomed. Now, he is preferred above all his other siblings who are in the military. Right. So that's the difference between him and others. He's been well.
You see, preference sometimes is one subject that is not determined by your quality, your experience, or your training. Preference could be a product of somebody likeness for you. I can like the first son of my first wife.
Because there's division within the family.
I can decide to also actually export my likeness or my love to the second child of my second wife. So some of these
you and I were here this morning because we are preferred by somebody in that person's mind.
Of course, yes. So not really a product of the fact that we have lived in Chad.
Yes. but you see, bottom line of what I want to say is that the whole of this, what is going on here is, we have had even worse case scenario when Yaradua died and people were treating with his body and all that.
All right.
If you have ever played a snake and ladder game.
Quickly.
Yeah. Have you ever played snake and ladder?
Yeah.
That's the case with Africa. Today we are making progress. Tomorrow we are, going backwards. I think that we should make progress and find leadership and trust that this young man will deliver. That's the way. So that we can climb that ladder and move forward and getting up there and getting to the mouth of the snake and falling back.
Those are your final words now. Quickly, Dotun, do you have a final word?
Yes, I just, either we operate or practice democracy or military rule, there's the need for us to attach what I call sense of urgency to governance. A friend of mine, as I wrap up, was telling me that the number of years spent to repair Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is almost the same number of years that was spent building it. So there's no sense of urgency in governance.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, public affairs analyst Dr. Ojo and global affairs analyst Chooks Ngoko, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.